For Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Vanita Dillon and Justin Agbiani will be interviewing Lieutenant Commander Fionna Boyle, female mariner and Merchant Marine Academy grad. In this last part, Fionna talks about how she approached resiliency as a cadet, how she uses reframing, and how to be comfortable with your voice to speak out. Check out our Resiliency Project page to be updated on upcoming podcasts. www.csum.edu/resiliency.
So considering your role with the Office of Sexual Assault and Prevention and your 10 plus years at sea, what would you tell your cadet self and your cadet peers to do differently, and things that maybe you would like to see change?
In a perfect world, I would say like travel, because I just think back to my shipping experience, and it was like, get on every ship you can, to go to every country you can. But in regards to sexual assault awareness and harassment awareness and everything that we're talking about on this discussion today, I would say if I could go back and tell like my cadet self or my peers, it would be to learn your voice earlier on. And I know for me, being in a regimental community in college, and same to you at the Corps Cadets and other maritime schools, just schools in general, like self-advocacy is very important. And obviously there's times and places for knowing when that is. Because in certain roles, if you're, going through your indoctrination training or other things, there's specific training outcomes of why things are happening. But in regards to knowing that, like, if something is happening that's wrong to you, or you don't think it doesn't seem right, and trusting your gut, that's super important. And knowing that just something's off. And definitely I would say knowing the policies. So my cadet self specifically on board, I can't really say as a cadet that my first thing I was looking into was, what's your sexual assault or sexual harassment policy on board? It was like, okay, where is my bunk card? Where do I need to report? What time is lunch? But knowing, if you're that aware when you step on board and you start asking about policies and rules and the safety management system, getting really involved with those questions, one, I think it's only going to present your leadership and your first engineer or your chief mate to be like, wow, like this person's asking about policy. It's going to create a good conversation for sure. And I think that's really important. I also would recommend stepping in early into certain like leadership opportunities that you would have on the vessel and not shying away from them. Because one, you're a cadet. So if you mess up, so say if you ask to lead a drill or a tough conversation, like maybe a safety meeting, a monthly safety meeting, or in volunteering to be like, hey, I don't really know that topic. If a fleet letter or a safety advisory came out, just volunteering and saying, hey, I'll take the lead on that this month. Do you mind, Captain? Can I talk about that? And going and do the research. Or if there's a safety device on board that you think, you know what, like, I don't know a lot about that. Let me learn more and then go back and teach the crew about what I learned. To really dig in to that, I think would be really important. So not shying away of just waiting for that fire and boat drill when, the inevitable chief mate is going to ask the cadets to step up and talk about the EPIRB. Don't wait for that. Just volunteer to go and do that. And because the more you build your self-advocacy, being comfortable in speaking, not only publicly, but speaking up for yourself, is going to tie in with having tough conversations. It's not easy to talk in front of people. But I feel like if you get over that perhaps fear or unknown factor of talking in front of the crew, it's only going to benefit you, one, in creating rapport and knowing, and them seeing you and knowing that you're willing to take that plunge or that opportunity to talk with all of them. And it might even offer, the doors to open to having conversations with them. If there are safety circumstances like that you need to address, like, oh, hey, so and so, like, don't forget about wearing your safety glasses today if you see them out on deck without them on, or hey, bosun, I misplaced my gloves. Can we go and grab them? And it looks like you might need another pair too, or something like that. Being able to know how to handle a situation that needs to be fixed or addressed at a younger um, age or lower rank. I think the earlier you do that, the better. I would say something else I would recommend is building a communication plan. As a cadet, didn't really think about that. Just knowing that, now as time has progressed, because it's been about 14 years, 15 years since I was a cadet. But my ships didn't really have Wi-Fi. Couldn't just walk up to the bridge and use the sat phone. Um, so there was a lot of books and DVDs and of course sea projects. But I would say building a plan with your family and friends of knowing and just creating awareness to them of them knowing what you want to be communicated on. So, for example, when I was at sea, my grandfather passed away. And, I'm the type of person that I don't want months to go by and then me coming back and be like, oh, hey, by the way, grandpa passed. Um, like I'm someone who wants to be informed as it happens. And I'd have to, grieve and mourn and in my own way on board the vessel. But for me, that's part of life. And everyone's going to be different. There may be some people out there who want to wait until they come back home. But having that conversation up front so that your family is aware of what you want to be informed on. And also going back to them and saying, hey, just got on board, realized, looked at the ship schedule. It's going to be about 3 weeks before I can talk to you. Kind of want to use that as reflecting time, get away from my technology devices. You're not going to hear from me. That way your family isn't maybe freaking out that they haven't heard from you in weeks. At least that's the feedback I got from my family and friends. But having that two-way conversation, super important. Also goes back to the tough conversations piece. The more you can learn in communication, I think the better. And frequency. Yeah, just knowing like maybe how frequently you're going to call them. And then I would say for a comms plan is knowing your resources and knowing that you're not alone. So if you may be the only cadet out there, you may have a sea partner, but you have your crew, right? So establishing rapport with at least someone if you have a mentor on board. Um, and knowing that you're not alone out there and that if the ship's diverted or you're going through a storm or something's happening, there's other people on that vessel who are experiencing the same things. And knowing that if you start experiencing something that you know is wrong, whether it's harassment or assault, or you're witnessing that happening to someone else, you know who to talk to and that you are comfortable with maybe already having a rapport built with someone to say, like, to report it. Um, so, and also for the resources piece is taking, uh, you know, adding to your phone or like a printed resource list to bring out with you at sea so that you have those phone numbers. So if you are able to run up and use the sat phone, you know what to do, or you're hanging off the bridge wing trying to get reception if you're near land and it finally comes in and you're able to make a quick phone call. You don't have to try to use your data to Google what the resource contacts are. You already have it on your sheet. So preparation is key and just thinking about, okay, how can I forward plan for when I'm out there? So those are some of the pieces that I would tell my cadet self that I've learned now 15 years later.
Thank you so much, Justin and Fiona, for this wonderful conversation. I have to agree with you, Fiona, and appreciate your advice to cadets or anyone for self-advocacy. It's a really important nugget to always have handy and to practice it. And for our cadets to use college as learning grounds to find that voice when you want to stand up for what you believe in. It's important. And it's a great learning experience. So don't be shy. And thank you, Justin, for asking such insightful questions and taking Fionna back, helping her time travel to her cadet years. I have, we're talking about maritime, Fionna and Justin, but I find that every profession has its own flavor of challenges. And I feel the when and how we respond to those challenges dictate how successful we're going to be in overcoming them, or how successful we'll be altogether. Over time, as individuals, we learn to adapt to change. We don't like it. We don't like change, but we adapt to it. We hone our skills. We manage our perspective on situations, and find work-life balance, and learn to be more positive in our approach. And most of the times, all of these things, whether applied to life all the time or some of the times, we get stronger and we get more resilient. In your experience, are there any specifics that you can share that have built your resiliency?
There is. So it was early on in my shipping career, and I think it was maybe my first or second work tour. And at that time, the vessel I was on traveled internationally, and we were also on the spot market. So it was a great sense of adventure because you didn't really know where you were going to go on the back end returning to the States. But for me, a sea story was, I had the expectation of being home for the holidays. And when I went on board, that was the plan. I was going to be able to get relieved overseas. Um, and then things changed, and we were probably like a week away from port. And I remember the captain coming down and saying, "Hey, Fionna, yeah, you aren't going to be flying home in this port." And that was, at the time, so challenging in processing, because I was underway. We had like shipboard email, but it was all an internal struggle. It was the internal processing and introspection, and okay, well, you start thinking of extremes, like, okay, well, I'm just going to walk off. I have to be home for this. Like, I can't be told what to do, or, your mind just goes to all these different avenues. And then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I signed articles. I'm on board a vessel. I'm employed. I have responsibilities. And all these things, and just having to bring yourself back to reality of, okay, what do I have control over? If I have to stay on board longer, that's more pay, more opportunity to learn, and just shifting the framework. So I think one of the biggest things in building resiliency for myself over time has been knowing that, like, how to reframe something and to shift it to a positive mindset, because it is so easy to be negative, to stay negative, and then for that spiral to occur. It is so challenging. And I know personally, it's very challenging to stay in a positive mindset outlook, uh, and to bring that perspective to things. Obviously, you need to be a realist too on a lot of different things, but I think the more you can stay positive or reframe something to a positive light, it's only going to add resiliency to not only your life, but especially if you're a mariner offshore. That's important. I would say too, for me, for resiliency, I I've really now take going to sea as like a personal, spiritual, reflective time for myself. And I use it as kind of a technology detox. I welcome being underway now. If you're my last vessel was coastwise, so it'd be only about 3 days at sea, but still, it'd be just enough to not be on my phone, not researching things, not being, on the computer, and just really developing a healthy workout routine and um, your meals, and really, really focusing on developing relationships with crew members, and just building the relationship with yourself and knowing who you are in an environment without technology, and journaling, and just knowing, building goals, and knowing what you want to do when you get off the ship, and long-term planning. um, I think building resiliency also involves the introspection and reflection on what you've learned that day, what you hope to accomplish and learn the following day, because you should always be asking yourself, what am I going to learn, and develop more challenges on board, that you want to um, overcome, and continue to learn. Because if for me, I build kind of a framework. Okay, I have X amount of time at sea this time. I want to accomplish these X things. Um, Maybe it's, if you're a deck officer, like engaging more with the engine room, or vice versa. Or, there was like me to learn more about how this pump operates on deck, and get out there and make it kind of a goal for your time on board, that complete a project, or you learn more about something that you didn't know before. And for resiliency, I would say seeking guidance. One thing overall that I've learned is that if you go and you ask people for their advice, there's two options that I've tried to develop. Is one, I'm talking to you, not for you to get up and do something for me, but I'm talking to you because I respect you and your mentorship, and seeking advice on how to handle a situation. But I would like to handle it myself, just seeking guidance on that. And then the other aspect, of course, is being like, hey, um, I've tried XYZ, don't really know what to do, and now I'm asking for your help. Um, because if you don't paint that framework, a lot of people can interpret. I know I do, when people come to me like, oh gosh, I have to help. Like, I want to help. But sometimes people aren't coming to you for you to get up and go help them. They want to learn and grow in their own way of how to handle a situation. So, in my own resiliency is asking for help, being willing to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. And that's at every level in your career, whether you're brand new, and it's always easier as a cadet to say, I don't know. But even as you get older, you should always be learning, and not get complacent. And we can always learn from other people. So those are some ways I've approached resiliency in my life.
Thank you. So you spoke about your overall experience with at sea, and I'm, as a Title IX officer for Cal Maritime, I'm thinking about students who may be involved either directly or indirectly with a complaint, and the process of getting that complaint handled or investigated can sometimes be an additional burden. Well, mostly will be an additional burden. And like you suggested, reframing the situation so that it supports where you want, what you want the outcome to be of that complaint would be helpful. Allowing yourself to take one day at a time and not jumping ahead, what's going to happen next week or next semester, or when cruise comes, can probably be very disturbing. So allowing yourself to take a day at a time would be helpful, again, from that reflective and reframing perspective. And And recognizing that there are many people on campus and a lot of resources available to support you in that journey, as difficult and long as it may seem, and finding your voice to ask for those resources and insisting if that's what you need to do, can be helpful. Only people who are going through a complaint or have gone through an experience know what they need, and should feel absolutely comfortable stepping forward and asking for the kind of assistance that would help them cope with the situation. So from what you said, I think my recommendation to our students would be to reframe again and again and reflect on what you want the outcome to be, and ask for help. Any last questions, Fionna, for any of us? Because I'm going to ask Justin if he has any for you.
Yeah, I'm always love learning from all different perspectives on how we can better hold the space for these conversations, and specifically to the maritime industry. I know with Ali Cedeno, we have our a Women Offshore Sexual Assault Awareness Month series right now, and we talk about resources. We have some founders of different organizations that we speak with, and I'm going to be interviewing a doctor who specializes in emergency medicine, like remote location. And it's really a great conversation. But I think for my question for both of you is, generally, no matter where we are, whether we are mariners offshore or the support network that allows people to do that line of work, and educators and other people all around, what can we do to have the conversations? I believe in, the effect of, you talk to one person, that person talks to another, and it keeps expanding. But from your perspective, what maybe would be one thing that each of you could do to help spark further conversation with someone after this recording?
I think I'll answer that, because coming from a resiliency peer, what I've discussed with my group is the best way to kind of deter or building a stronger community is talking with your neighbor or talking to the person next to you in your dorm or class, and fostering relationships through shared interests. And I'm going to plug one of the apps that the school has, which is Nod. And this app is great, where it has all information that's confidential, and you're able to form connections through any shared interests you have, hobbies. If you need tutoring, if you need looking for someone, maybe do certain activities with, that Nod is great for that. And this app is geared towards incoming freshmen and transfer students. That way, I know it's, especially as a freshman, I'll be quick about this experience I had, but during my orientation week, the second day, my roommate left. Like he left, and I had the whole room to myself. And as a freshman, you think it's cool, but then you realize, I don't really know anyone here. It's like my first year, and I go to class, some people say hi to me, but I don't really know anyone. And so this is why I'm a big fan of this app, where it seeks to break down that barrier for any first timers at Cal.
Yeah, that's great. I know many transfer students, especially if you're out of state or you're not local to that region of where your school is. Same thing too. It's like, okay, where do I go to get pizza? It's like the base, like lay of the land type situations. But yeah, is connecting with other individuals, which I know can be hard right now in a time of COVID too, and a lot of things are online. But yeah, Vinita, do you have any insights on what you could do to spark like one change, or what you would do after this recording to have this conversation?
I'm in an interesting position on campus. My role is that of an investigative and compliance nature, but I definitely try to be out and available for our students to ask questions and get more familiar with what Title IX is, what some of their rights and options are. My role is not one of an advocate, so it becomes a little tricky. However, I'm hoping that with all our students are vaccinated now and are on campus, and fall 2021 is going to be fully operational. And my goal is to connect with small groups on campus and having prevention related conversations with small groups in person, not via Zoom. That's what's on my mind.
Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. So this was very informative, and I appreciated you sharing so much of what you've done in the past years, Fiona. And I wanted to, before we close the session, wanted to let our cadets and the community know that if you've witnessed or if you've been a victim of sexual assault, you're not alone. There are resources available to you on and off campus. There are national networks like RAIN, RAINN, and National Sexual Violence Resource Center. We have a connection with a local community entity called Safe Solano, which provides advocacy. And while you're sailing, there are offshore entities that can be reached in case of crisis. One of them is called Pathways to Safety, and the other one's called Safer Waves. And we encourage you to report matters and know that reporting structure with your employer. And as Fiona pointed out, your union, if you're sailing with a union, and definitely with your school, exist, and they're vetted and they're there to support you. So please use those. I'm a resource, and you can reach out to me anytime. My cell phone number is out there for anyone to text me or call me. And finally, as Fiona had pointed out a few minutes ago, Women Offshore is a valuable resource for all our students. There are mentorship opportunities available and great current information, as well as the new podcast that Fiona has been doing with Ali Sedino, who's the founder. So please check out womenoffshore.org. And Ali's been on our campus. She's been an opening speaker at Women at Maritime Leadership. Have a great relationship with her. So she's quite amazing. I think that's all I had to share. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank Fiona and Justin for taking the time today and helping record this and getting the message out to our students. Thank you so much. And next year at Women in Maritime Leadership, we hope to see you both.
Thanks, Vanita. Thanks for having me today. Thanks, Justin. It was so nice meeting you, and really impressed with the peer resiliency outreach program. It's really impressive. I wish every maritime school and just colleges in general integrated that type of program. I think it's really great.
Thank you. We're working really hard to improve what we can.